Guys, in this video we are going to find the surface area of cones. We're also going to talk about how to find the slant height of a cone as well. So remember, a cone is a solid with one circular base and one vertex, okay? So the tip of our cone is called its vertex, and of course the base is a circle. So the formula for finding the surface area of a cone is S is equal to pi r squared plus pi r times L, where L is our slant height and R is our radius. And of course S is the surface area. Now, in this case, all you have to do is go ahead and plug in the values given into our formula. So we are told that S, we don't know what it is as we're finding, is equal to pi, which is 3.14 in this case, times r squared. And r squared is simply r, or radius, times radius. So it's going to be 6.7 times 6.7. And that's the first part of our formula. And then you have pi r, so that's 3.14 times our radius, which is 6.7, times L, which is our slant height. So it's going to be this height here, which is 14. Now what I want you to pay attention to, and just to make a note, the first part of our formula, pi r squared, that should be familiar to you. Pi r squared is the formula for the area of a circle, which is pretty much telling us what's the area of the base of our cone. And the second part of our formula, pi r L, is telling us the surface area, or the area of the lateral face, or the actual part of the cone that you're going to hold if you were to get an ice cream, okay? An ice cream cone. So with that being said, let's go ahead and put these values into our calculator or into your brain if you have that ability. And what you'll get for the first part of our formula here, our value is 140.95, added to the second part of our formula, which, like I said, is the area of the lateral face, the part of our cone that we are going to hold if we get ice cream, is going to be 294.53. When we add those together, our final surface area of the entire cone is 435.48 square inches. Let's go ahead and look at another example. Here we have another cone, and we're asked to find the surface area of this cone. We're going to start, as we should always start, with our formula first, which is S is equal to pi r squared, and that is, like I said before, the area of the circular base of our cone, plus pi times r times the slant height of our cone. Now, let's go ahead and plug the things into our formula that we've been given in our question. S is equal to pi, which is 3.14, well, approximately 3.14 anyway, times the radius squared. Now, take a very close notice that in our problem, we have been given the length from one end of our base to the other through the center. That is actually the diameter of our cone, okay? And that is 3 meters. Well then, because we've been given the diameter, we need to find the radius, because the radius is what is needed for our formula. So, recall that the radius is the distance, half the distance of the diameter. That is the distance from the center to any point on our circumference. So, half of the diameter, so radius is equal to the half of the diameter. So that's a half of 3, because 3 is the length of our diameter. And so that's going to be 1.5 meters. So 1.5 is the value that we're going to be substituting into our formula, because that represents the length of our radius. So be sure to notice what are you being given in the question? Are you given the diameter? Are you given the radius? Are you given the slant height? Or whatever it might be before you move forward. So now we know that 1.5 is our radius, so it's going to be 1.5 times 1.5, that's what radius squared means, plus pi, 3.14, times our radius, 1.5, times our slant height, which is 7.5. Now that we are at that point in our equation here, the first part of our formula, 3.14 times 1.5 squared, is going to be 7.065 plus the second part of our formula, 3.14 times 1.5 times 7.5, is going to be 35.33. And when we add those together, we end up with 42.39 square meters. And this is the total surface area of our cone. Now, what you need to pay attention to is the fact that if they're asking me for simply the outside of the cone, not including the top of or the base of the cone, then I only need to know the area here. The base would not matter. In other words, it's a cone with an open top or an open bottom. But in this case, we need the total surface area, so that's including the bottom as well. Let's look at our final example. Finding the slant height of cones. Now, let's go ahead and start, of course, with our formula. So it's S is equal to pi r squared plus pi rl. Now, what is not included in the question, which should have been, is that the surface area is equal to 1,000 square meters. Okay? Now, take a look at this formula and take a look at what's given in the question. Well, what we notice is that the surface area is given, so that's not something we need to find. So we're going to substitute that into our formula. 1,000 square meters is equal to pi, which is 3.14, times the radius squared, so that's 5.2, times 5.2, plus pi, 3.14, times our radius, 5.2, times our slant height, which is L, and that is what we're looking for. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is simplify this equation to look a little bit cleaner. And so let's go ahead and do that. So we can combine this first part, and we can also do something with this part as well. So the left-hand side of our equation remains the same, 1,000, and that's going to be equal to, and the first part of our equation, 3.14 times 5.2 times 5.2 is going to become 84.9. And the second part of our equation, 3.14 times 5.2 is going to, times L, or the slant height, is going to be 16.33 L. Now that's a little bit easier to deal with because now we can see the values that we have without having to do so many steps in order to solve for L. Now remember, our goal is to find the slant height, so our goal is to isolate the L on one side of our equation. In order to do that, I'm going to look at the side that my variable is on and see how I can manipulate this equation to solve for that variable. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the 84.9 because it's not attached to the L, but it is a hindrance to my goal. And we're going to do that by subtracting, or opposite operations, subtracting that value that we're trying to get rid of on both sides because it is plus or positive 84.9. When we subtract 84.9 from 1,000, we end up with 915.1 is equal to 16.33 L. Our final step is to divide both sides by 16.33. And the reason we're dividing is because the operation between the 16.33 and the L is multiplication. So the opposite operation, which is what we apply when we're trying to manipulate our equation so as to remove one value from one side to the other. So here we are, 915.1 divided by 16.33 is going to be 56.04. And our unit is square feet, and that is our L. Or it can be written as L is equal to 56.04 square feet. Both of these answers are acceptable.